Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for the webinar, Futureproofing Cybersecurity, Preparing for Evolving Threats. Before we dig into the meat of this content, I have a few important tidbits for you all. First, today, the session is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be shared after this event. Within the console in front of you, you'll also see some downloadable content about our products, as well as a chat feature. We'd love to hear where you're viewing from right now. So if you in the chat feature want to let us know where you're logged in from, that'd be great. We'd love to see that. If you have any questions throughout the presentation today for anybody, please use the Q&A feature on your screen. We have a section at the end of our presentation allotted for Q&A, so we will get to them during that section. We appreciate your questions greatly. Lastly, we have 4 $100 gift cards that we will be giving away post-event, so keep an eye on your email after this webinar. Note these gift cards are redeemable at over 1,000 online stores and charities, depending upon your location. Different store options if you're in Europe than if you're in the United States. On the agenda today, do some brief introductions of who will be presenting today. We will dig into the state of cybersecurity adoption, a report done with the Ponemon Institute and in conjunction with Recast Software. We're very excited to share some of these key stats and takeaways from this report with you. By attending today, you will receive the full report via email after this webinar. You can also download it right now in the content download section of your screen. After we go through some of the report highlights with Dr. Larry Ponemon, we will have Marty Miller from Recast Software on to walk you through some of our cybersecurity tools and features here at Recast Software. And then finally, we'll wrap things up with that Q&A and a giveaway announcement at the end. With us today, we have Dr. Larry Ponemon. He is the chairman and founder of the Ponemon Institute and is considered a pioneer in privacy auditing and the Responsible Information Management, or RIM, framework. Dr. Ponemon was appointed to the Advisory Committee for Online Access and Security for the United States Federal Trade Commission. He was appointed by the White House to the Data Privacy and Integrity Advisory Committee for the Department of Homeland Security. Dr. Ponemon was also appointed to 2 California state task forces on privacy and data security laws. He's a member of the Shared Assessments Advisory Board as well. Dr. Ponemon earned his PhD at Union College. He has a master's degree from Harvard and attended the doctoral program in systems sciences at Carnegie Mellon University. In addition to all of that, he is a certified public accountant and a certified information privacy professional. Thank you, Dr. Ponemon, for joining us today. We're really excited to share this research.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that introduction. Very nicely done.
Yeah, my pleasure. With us as well, we have Marty Miller from Recast Software. He is a senior solutions engineer here and has been with Recast for over 4 years. Previously, before Recast Software, he worked as a desktop administrator and infrastructure support engineer, both within the healthcare spaces and the education space. Very excited to have you here as well, Marty. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the intro, and great to be here.
Yeah. I am Matt Wieland, Content Marketing Manager here at Recast. On the behalf of Recast, I collaborated with the Ponemon Institute and Dr. Larry here with us today in helping to tweak and draft the initial survey that we sent out, and then also working on refining and fine-tuning the final report that we're sharing with you all today. We have a poll question here. You'll see shortly within the report that we asked folks in the survey what role they are within their organization. We'd love to know your role, and you can then compare that to those who participated in this report. So if you could take a minute to click on here as to what your current role is at your organization, we'd appreciate that. Give you a few seconds. see the responses are coming in here. We have a good chunk. I'm going to wait a few more seconds. We appreciate it. Still rolling in.
Nice. Thank you, audience.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Over half are sysadmins, it looks like, and then IT security and IT manager director. Next couple. No others in there. Oh, never mind. I apologize. I did need to scroll down on my screen. 29% other.
Very good. Just need more of those VPs.
Indeed. All right, so I want to set the stage a little bit before we get into the research. Here at Recast Software, we talk with hundreds of organizations every month about the state of their endpoint management and the state of their security infrastructure. Conversations typically revolve around compliance, along with many other things. However, over the last, let's say, 6 to 18 months, we started to notice a trend, and we started hearing about cybersecurity insurance. And insurance requirements kept coming up in conversations more and more frequently. Let's say it's definitely been rising over time. And with this, we started doing some of our own independent research to dig into the state of the current cybersecurity insurance market, learn more about it ourselves. And we found some limitations in what we could find on this information. And that led us to the Ponemon Institute. We've followed their work for years. Very excited about a lot of the past work that they've done. And so this is the first time that we've collaborated together. And in this research, we attempted to dig into the state of the cybersecurity insurance market and cybersecurity policies and procedures broadly. Very excited to share some of this research with you today. And with that, I will hand it over to Dr. Larry Ponemon. Very excited to have you here again.
Thank you, Matt. This is a lot of fun. I'm really delighted to co-present with you. Again, from time to time, just chime in. We'd love to hear your opinion on things. But if we don't get a chance to do that, I just wanted to let you know, Matt, your input to this project has been exceptional. So I view you as a co-author, if you will, or a co-researcher. In terms of this study, in the study that we have here, it involved over 631 IT and IT security practitioners. And all of these folks are knowledgeable about their organization's use of cybersecurity insurance. Just keep in mind that a study, go to the next slide. Mm-hmm. If you look at these numbers, there are really some very important findings. Just in terms of the sample, we have a final sample of 631 qualified respondents, which is a 3.8 response rate. So now most of you in the audience, if you're not a researcher, 3.8 doesn't seem like a big number percentage, but in the world of research, it's enormous. If you look at other studies of its kind, including earlier studies conducted by Ponemon Institute, we average about 2.5%. Gartner and all the big guys they operate in that percentage range. So 3.8% is really good. I'm actually bragging. I'm sorry for that. Some of these results are very painful to collect information on a large scale. So thank you, audience, for doing the survey.
Yeah,
this is kind of an interesting finding too. We have a range of respondents by design. We didn't want just one group like managers or supervisors, but more than half of the sample, in fact, I think it was 68%, if my math is correct, are supervisor and above. And that's a good finding because sometimes we do crosstabs and crosstabs and crosstabs, and you want to have a slice of the pie that's large enough to sustain that kind of rigor. And we basically now see that we have good slices of the pie, but the largest, of course, at 18%, the purple is manager, and then 16% is associate staff and technicians. And so this kind of is parallel to some of the findings we did in just that survey, that online survey that we completed a couple of minutes ago. But another important point about pie charts, when you see a sliver like 3%, even though you want to do the analysis, including it, it's very painful getting rid of responses in your survey, but 3% could be too small a study to achieve statistical significance. And this is especially true in our next slide chart.
Yeah, you bet.
Well, look at this. By design, we wanted folks from all different industries. We have lots and lots of industries. That's the good news. The bad news is some of the slices to the pie by design are really too small to do rigorous statistical analysis. But some are really big, like financial services is an enormous subsample. And rule of thumb, you want a sample size about 9 or 10 at a minimum in order to be able to do statistical inference. Or there's always non-parametric statistics that you can implement. I'm sorry about the technical details here, but we really cover the waterfront. There's some very interesting findings across industries.
Yeah, we were really pleased with the mix overall between these last two slides as well. Great mix of respondents to, like you said, supervisor. 68% of folks were supervisor or above, and the depth of knowledge kind of required within the survey is pretty great. So we were really pleased to see that number at 68% being supervisor or up within their organization. The industry mix is clearly great here in front of us. And then I would also just highlight that about 53% of the respondents had over 15,000 employees in their organization. So just over half had over 15,000 employees. So it also was a pretty solid mix by organizational size. So really, really pleased with the results from our end as well.
Well, thank you, Matt. I really appreciate that. Okay, so now we're going to do the drum roll. What keeps organizations up at night? And I think the technology challenges that keep organization security posture from being fully effective. Number one, the 34% of respondents said ineffectiveness of security technologies, 31% complexity of the IT security environment, 29% inability to patch vulnerabilities in a timely fashion, and then the lack of visibility in the network, into the network and applications. And of course, below the line, there are other choices. So ineffectiveness of security technology is a challenge for all of the companies that provided this response. 34% in a study like this is enormous, but we actually allow more than one response per individual. So we have two response. If you sum it all up, it's more than 100%. And that's okay.
Yeah. And ultimately, this slide captures why we reached out to you originally. Because the 29% inability to patch vulnerabilities in a timely manner, at 10%, the admin privilege management challenges. These are the conversations that we're having with organizations at Recast Software. And in these conversations around those topics, we were hearing more and more about cybersecurity insurance, which we're seeing right here now as well.
Very good. Very, very cool. Next slide.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the governance issues that reduce the IT security posture? We get from technology to governance. Governance is its own standalone in the study. And not having a complete inventory of third parties with access to our sensitive and confidential data. That's number one at 40%. That's a big one. Next, mm-hmm. Lack of consistent enterprise-wide security policies and programs, 31%. And insufficient personnel. In other words, it's not about technology as much as it's about people making mistakes, or just not paying attention to the details, or not having the right background and training and all of this good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 3 of these jumped out at me. The lack of personnel, senior management doesn't see cyber attacks as a significant risk, and then the lack of budget. I mean, these are themes we hear very consistently in conversations we have with IT leaders and IT teams. And I always think of this one story. I have a very close family member who works as an IT consultant and cybersecurity consultant for a value-added reseller within the space. He's working with a Fortune 500 manufacturer, and they, at that company, while he was in the organization working with their IT team, the leadership, the C-suite team, was consistently saying to this family member of mine and the IT team at this organization that, we're not in the computer business. We build hardware. I don't want to spend money on this IT project. And it sounds like something you might have heard 15 years ago, but this was a conversation just a couple years ago at a Fortune 500 manufacturing company. The challenges are great. I'm preaching to the choir here, I know, with everybody who's on this call. Most of us understand the urgent need, and it's just a matter of escalating that up the chain to get the budget we need so often.
I appreciate that story as well. It does say a lot about the company. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go to our next slide. So why organizations purchase cybersecurity insurance? Again, 2 responses permitted. The number one, again, at 41%, experience an increasing number of cybersecurity incidents. In other words, companies get newfound religion. They're going to spend more money when they have a bad experience. And unfortunately, that's true. Over the years, and we've been in this business for a long time, we see that that's consistent, that companies, boards of directors, they say, well, we'll get to it later. It's not number one. It's not a burning issue. It's not a top 10. And then they have a big problem, and then voila, the companies are willing to spend and experiment with different solutions as well as insurance. Second, at 40%.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
I'm just concerned about the potential financial consequences of a cybersecurity incident. Kind of 41 and 40 could be combined in a way. They're not overlapping, but they kind of are dealing with the same issue. Okay. Here's a takeaway I think was important for our audience. Takeaway: organizations are making security insurance part of their organizations, not just at a tactical level, but at a strategic level. And the reason is because there's very serious financial impact. If you have a cyber incident, there's the cost of having to remediate and contain and all this good stuff that we've studied. But unfortunately, it's not strategic. Strategic becomes very important. And we see insurance as a tactical and strategic tool. By the way, an important stat to disclose, 76% of our sample are purchase cyber insurance for their company, and 24% have not purchased it but are making a purchase decision. So these are knowledgeable individuals who are responsible for the evaluation of cyber insurance. Just needed to make that point.
Yeah, that's a really important one to highlight. Folks who do not currently have cybersecurity insurance and folks who are not currently making a decision about what insurance to get, they were exited from the survey. So this really is for people who, a majority, 76%, who currently have cybersecurity insurance at their organization.
People get very upset when they're in question number 39 of a Ponemon study. Well, you didn't qualify, so you're out of here. But we're nice. We don't actually do that. Next slide. How do you determine the level of cyber risk? Because obviously insurance and risk are hand-in-glove concepts. Number one, they complete an informal or ad hoc internal assessment. Ad hoc really means it's not state of the art, okay? Did not do any type of assessment at all, 21%. Complete a formal internal assessment, 21% again. Has a third party to conduct an assessment or audit, and then intuition or gut feel. I know, Matt, we talked about this before. It's like 40% are doing something that may be good, maybe not great, but 60% doing virtually nothing, or not choosing an assessment to approach that really is digging deep enough. What do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, we added up: do not assess risk, rely on gut feel, and have an informal ad hoc process. You add those up, that's 60%, a pretty clear majority that have little to no process in place for assessing cyber risk at their organization. Yeah, that was pretty striking to us. Yeah.
My favorite is the gut feel response. That's sometimes it works, but 9 times out of 10 or 99% of the time, it's not something you want to rely on. Okay. This, I think, talks about that only 21% of organizations complete a formal internal risk assessment. And they're the good guys. They're doing at least something that's substantial, we think.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. This speaks to that last slide. Only 21% there have a formal process in place. Yep.
Cool. Now, next drum roll, the impact of cybersecurity insurance. This slide is a little complex to present, but I will give it my best try. If you want to read all the details we're presenting you, don't take copious notes, because the research report contains all of this wonderful information. We'd love to get your feedback. But in terms of the state of cybersecurity attacks, that's blue, it's increasing at a rate that is pretty significant. And then if it's kind of there are two tails here, increased and decreased. And notice that the blue is lower, the red is higher. And red is IT security costs. So the risk seems to be increasing. And that's a major reason, as we know, for investing in cyber insurance. Okay. Next slide. This is the hurdles faced with purchasing cybersecurity insurance. Kind of talked about some of them before, but the number one, adequate budget, very, very important. Evidence of security and training programs conducted, that becomes important. Review of security policies and strategy, effectiveness of incident response team ability to prevent and detect cyber attacks, and more below the line. So a lot of interesting issues here in terms of security posture and the need ultimately to making that investment decision in cyber insurance.
Yeah, the adequate budget being the primary answer here, the majority answer was fascinating to us. It's a interesting, yeah, I guess it's not surprising. It shows you companies are putting money or where their mouth is. But it's a way to assess from a distance pretty easily as well without having to show up at the organization. Show us the budget you've allotted to cybersecurity.
Right. And the budget has certain issues from a perception point of view. So a strong budget might be one that doesn't spend enough dollars. It does, but on paper it looks good. And so that is also embedded in some of these responses. Remember, there's also one of the questions was leadership was not trusted or believed to really support insurance. And that budget is, I think, intertwined with some of that as well. Leadership and ownership within a company is very important. Okay. And I got in my soapbox. I apologize to the audience.
Yeah.
This is an important slide, Matt, because we have a lot of very small letters, lots of choices. So what security practices and technologies are required? Adequate support becomes number one. Number two, multi-factor authentication. Adequate budget, as we just discussed, identity and access management, and many other choices below the line. This slide has lots of interesting results when we do crosstabs on some of these choices. And if you're interested in seeing that, well, just let us know. We'll send you a copy. Or Matt, you will get a copy that you can distribute to the audience.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, this slide gets into more detail on what I said earlier, but these are the conversations that we were having. What security practices and technologies are required by cybersecurity insurance companies. And this is exactly why we were having conversations with organizations and hearing our cybersecurity requires privileged access management solution. And Recast Software offers that solution. Conversations around zero trust frameworks, which shows up here as well at 34%, then also at 27% comprehensive patch management. Those are three common conversations that we're having with organizations with solutions that we offer.
That's great. Thank you, sir. Here's another takeaway. So insurers primarily rely upon the amount of budget allocated to IT security and evidence of security training programs. Those are the big ones. And training becomes very important. When you think about risk at the individual level or at the department level, whatever, you basically want to make sure that you have people who are trained. And unfortunately, some of the training programs that we evaluated have very severe defects, to be kind. But then there are players in the space that are very strong. So it's a whole bunch of different types of organizations. Training is very important, though, from a risk assessment and security posture perspective. Okay. Needless to say, compliance becomes very important as well. In some of our studies, it's difficult in hiring and retaining high in-house expertise, high level. This becomes a barrier to having success. So in-house expertise may be required, or the ability to go out and buy services from a qualified provider may be important, but clearly this has to be considered as a potential barrier if you're not doing in-house or have in-house expertise.
Yeah, I want to add a 73% report. It was difficult to extremely difficult to comply with the insurance requirements. So pretty hard to comply. Simultaneously, there was another question within the survey. Again, please dig through the final report, everybody who's on this call. 67% are extremely satisfied or satisfied with their insurance coverage. So difficult to comply, also a strong majority very satisfied with the coverage. It's basically worth the challenge of complying to harden their environment.
Very, very good. Okay. And this slide has a mixed message. We look at how often is vulnerability scanned, scanning required, and we notice on the left side more than once per day or daily, and that's 17% and 13%. But then you look at the lower percentages, and then you look at the other side of the distribution, and it's every 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And clearly, more frequently you do this, scanned, the better your security posture, stronger your security posture. It becomes very important to organizations to do this right. And we unfortunately have a mixed set of results. It's not clear any pattern. As you can see, it hovers around low of about 10% to a high of about 18%. That's probably not a good fact. What do you think?
Yeah, I would be shocked if we don't see the weighting on this scale in front of us shifting further left, with more insurance companies requiring faster scanning times or periods between scans. All the data we have found, including large reports like Microsoft's Digital Defense Report, that's an annual report, is pointing toward the vulnerabilities around third-party patching as one of the greatest vulnerabilities most organizations have today. And we know that we talk with organizations frequently who are, either ignoring a good majority of their third-party software patches or focusing on 5 to 10 titles. We trust that as cyber insurers become more and more aware of the risk in this space in particular, that more frequent scanning will become a mandate in order to obtain insurance.
Thank you, Matt. Very good insight. Next slide. So one of the things we looked at in the study is difficulty that organizations, or at least I say it's difficult, in finding affordable cybersecurity insurance and complying with the insurers' requirements. Again, here we use a 1 to 10 point scale. 7, 8, 9, or 10, 7 plus is considered very good. And we notice from a percentage point of view, we get interesting results. 50% of respondents using that scale said it's difficult to comply with the insurers' requirements. 46% say it's difficult to purchase affordable cybersecurity insurance. Affordability becomes really important because a lot of the organizations that really need the insurance don't have the resources. And we saw that going back to the budget item. Budget becomes important. If you don't have the budget, you're probably not going to get organizations building a stronger infrastructure, including insurance. What do you think?
Yeah, and this goes back to a previous point I made where I thought it was pretty fascinating that the difficulty is high, and then again, almost roughly 2/3 said it was worth it in the end. So an even higher percent than these. So, quite difficult, quite hard to afford, but ultimately a good majority are satisfied and thankful they did it.
Very cool, my friend. Next slide. Cyber insurance affordability. Lack of affordability, unfortunately, makes it difficult for organizations to meet their requirements from an insurance point of view. That basically puts cyber insurance out of reach for most, especially smaller size SMB type organizations. That's probably the marketplace that is most important from an insurance and risk management point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, conclusion. We could probably go through this pretty quickly because we have a demo. So basically, are cyber insurance providers keeping up with the worsening threat landscape? And the answer is, unfortunately, yes, but at great expense, in my opinion. It's very difficult. And that's because these attacks are more targeted, severe, and more sophisticated. These are really troubling findings. And that's why AI, artificial intelligence, may become very important, very useful in this domain.
Yeah, I would add that 60% of organizations stated that they were hacked or breached after obtaining insurance, which also points to the fact that insurance isn't there to prevent necessarily. It is just another barrier and financial security tool in the face of more frequent breaches. But to your point, attacks are becoming more targeted and severe. There's no doubt about that.
Thank you very much. Very cool. Financial repercussion. This probably is what's going to be very interesting to people as they kind of try to digest the numbers. But we also attempted to come up with what's the cost per organization, and we actually have a huge number. These are the average cost of all security exploits and data breaches experienced by an organization, $21 million per organization. And what are these things? What are the cost elements? Out-of-pocket expenditures such as ransomware, consultant, legal fees, indirect business costs such as productivity losses, diminished revenue, legal action, customer turnover, and even reputation damage. You sum it all up, and this is very costly for most organizations. And probably most likely a large organization can absorb the 21 million, but an SMB would have real difficulty doing that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just want to highlight the opening to the sentence there. This was since the purchase of insurance. So after insurance was in place, this was the average cost of a breach for these organizations, for those who experienced a breach, which was a significant majority there.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. This is this last slide, I think. This is caveats to the study. Basically, we are an independent research company, and we're very proud of the quality of work that we do, but there are inherent biases to the surveys and other research methods. And we basically factor that into the analysis. And we basically know that we are doing very well in the case of minimizing bias. But keep in mind that this is important for any organization to be truthful in the presentation of facts. And we think this orientation has been very helpful to the completion of our study.
Yeah, we appreciate the transparency here. We think it's an important slide to include. And with this wrapping up our section, talking about the report, I want to remind everybody, please download the report on your screen right now. We will also receive it via email. We trust that you're going to find the data within it worth your time. And again, thank you, Dr. Larry, for joining us for this webinar.
Thank you. Real pleasure.
You bet. A little bit about Recast Software before I transition over to Marty Miller from Recast himself. We at Recast Software, we started from the creation of our community right-click tools. And since that creation of the community tools, our goal has always been to empower sysadmins and make their lives easier. We have over 70,000 sysadmins who use our community tools every month around the globe. And we have thousands of companies who are using our paid suite of tools. With a 4.9 out of 5-star rating on Gartner, our products speak for themselves, and we're proud of that rating. We're equally proud of the support we provide to our customers. At Recast, we work to increase compliance for IT teams, thus the conversation that we had previously, and we were more frequently hearing cybersecurity insurance come up in those conversations. We automate on many fronts, including third-party patching automation, and we assist organizations in controlling admin rights access. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Marty Miller, Senior Solutions Engineer at Recast.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and we'll get into a demo here. So my part of this is getting to show you some of the ways that we can help with security and compliance and all that kind of thing as well. So what we're going to talk about and take a look at right away is looking at our BitLocker compliance tool. And as we know, there are quite a few places that BitLocker can store keys. I'm going to go ahead and grab an Active Directory OU and go ahead and scan. And kind of one of the, so let's take one step back while we're looking at our dashboard here. One of the things, if you're using the community right-click tools that you're going to notice are different from the enterprise version, which is what we're going to look at next, or right here, is our dashboards. And kind of the idea of the dashboards is, let's get you to some information and then allow you to take action on that information. So BitLocker compliance tool, now we'll talk about that. I went ahead and hit scan after looking at an OU. And what it's showing me here is it's essentially showing me, here are the computers that have keys that are stored in wherever. They can be stored in Active Directory. They can be stored in MDM. You can store them in Config Manager as well. What's coming soon in our tool is also the ability to see them if you have them in Azure Active Directory or Entra ID. And then seeing which ones maybe do have stored keys or don't have stored keys, and then allowing you to take action on some of those as well. So once you get into finding out more information, you can actually go into our security tools and our remote Windows security tool, which can actually take a look at how are these drives encrypted? Are they encrypted? What's exactly going on with them? What key protectors are we using? That kind of a thing. So you can actually see what's going on, but even more so can go ahead and take action right from inside the dashboard here. So if I wanted to suspend or resume or decrypt or encrypt, I could do that. This one's already encrypted, so I'm not going to encrypt it. But I could go ahead and do these things remotely without having to log into the machine to try and do something, without using PowerShell, whatever, however you're doing remote encryption, if you're doing remote encryption. We often will see this if drives have become decrypted somehow, or you just basically want to make things happen faster, you can essentially go in here. And when you run encrypt, it's going to go through the encryption wizard and let you go ahead and do encryption as you would normally do as you're going through, like what bit depth do you want it to be, what encryption method are you using, what key protectors, that kind of a thing as well. So that is just real briefly on BitLocker compliance and how the BitLocker compliance tool works. We're going to take a look at a couple others as well. One of the other places where we can find information about security and how things are working is one of our products. So that was part of right-click tools. We're going to take just a quick look and mention that we can also look for things in Endpoint Insights, where you can actually security, specifically looking at how is endpoint protection working in the environment. Maybe if you want to find, hey, which are the most vulnerable computers online? Which ones have missed the most patches? Which ones are missing the most patches? Which ones should probably be checked at? You can absolutely run those as well. And what it's going to do is you can view them here where you can take action right from inside the console. You could also go into, this is also SSRS reporting. So you can absolutely go ahead and go in there as well and find out more information. So one other dashboard that I want to show you before we talk about third-party patching as well as privilege management is we're actually going to look at software updates. This is probably one of our most popular dashboards. We're back in right-click tools. And this is actually where you can see, you take a collection and compare it to, or multiple collections if you want to, and compare it to update groups, or again, multiple update groups if you'd like to. I'm going to go ahead and grab our workstations collection and our newest workstations update group. And what that is going to show is just as fast as that. It's looking in the config manager database, basically to say, here are the devices that based on what you selected, they have all the updates implied. Don't worry about those at this point. They're good to go. But here are the ones that are missing some of the updates. At least one or more updates are missing. So you can actually see which devices I need to look at maybe because they don't have all their updates. Over on this side, on the missing updates by category up over here, I like to show this as well because what you can actually see here is when security asks you, hey, which computers are still missing a particular update, you can kind of go at it from that direction. So these are the computers that are missing this update in particular. So rather than just saying, I don't know, you're trying to look through here to find out which computers are missing those updates, you can go over here and do that and find, hey, here are the ones that are missing KB 5034123. Oh, that's fun. 1, 2, 3. Anyway, other things that you can do from here, you can also drop these down. And what this is going to show you is anything that the computer thinks it's missing based on what's in your software library. So even some of these, if you notice, aren't deployed. I like to think of this as a sanity check for us as admins to go, oh, right, I still need to do the 23H2 update. I haven't done that one yet. And obviously, we've got a few of them now in our software library that we could deploy. We just haven't done that yet. So it's a little bit of a sanity check to see exactly, hey, here's what we need. I mentioned earlier, though, that not only are the dashboards get you to information, but then you can go ahead and take action right from in here as well. So one of the things that you can do is what we call our remote software center. And inside Remote Software Center, you can actually look at our software updates tab. And this is going to show all the computers that I had selected that are missing those updates. And I can actually start them right from inside here. So if there's a computer that just you can't get it to start, or for some reason it just doesn't seem what's like you can get it to go, or you want them to go faster, you can absolutely do that from here. You can also see if there are any evaluation states that you might need to work on. So when you click install, it's going to go ahead and start the install, and then it's going to depend on your reboot policies, how soon it reboots. So if you look here, this one's actually already installed the update, but it's not finished yet because it actually needs to reboot before the update becomes available. So you could, or becomes installed. So you could actually see it says waiting for service window. If I wanted to, again, using right-click tools, I could go ahead and restart it right from here as well. So it's kind of nice. You can actually do right-click tools inside of a right-click tool. So I think that's kind of fun as well. So that's a little bit about how we can help getting some of those updates out there and get them installed faster. The next thing we're going to talk about is something that is a little bit new for us, which is our third-party patching solution. And what we are going to look at here is third-party patching is going to be your applications that are not Microsoft, applications that are not made by Microsoft necessarily. What is coming and what has just been released in the newest version is Application Manager that's integrated into the Recast management server. And essentially what you can do is you set up deployment processes so that you can automatically deploy updates into your environment. Now, if I go to applications, it's going to show a whole bunch of different applications that we can choose, and we can search. So we could even, not probably that way to spell Chrome, but we could actually go and grab these Chromes, and these are the different versions, versions of Chrome that we could essentially install. But those would be things that you could bring into your environment and have automatically update. Now we have two ways that we can do automatic updates with Application Manager. One of them, which I'm showing right there, will bring the applications right into your software library as an application. So it's actually going to show right underneath Application Manager here. And in that deployment process tab, you can actually go ahead and set up how your deployments work. So they automatically will create both the application and it will automatically create the deployments. And as newer versions come out, it will also remove those earlier version deployments. So you don't have all kinds of old deployments that are sitting out there forever. The other nice thing as well is notice there's only 2 versions of Chrome in here. We certainly have had more versions of Chrome that have come out since I set this up in June, which means it's also going to be cleaning up after itself. So as software becomes no longer needed, there are no more deployments. We always try and keep 2 so that you can go back a version if you need to, but you can set it so that essentially it'll clean that all up so that you don't have 15 or 20 versions of Chrome sitting on all of your distribution points and all of your environment. And it'll go ahead and clean those out so that you essentially can just keep the brand newest ones. And like I said, it's going to automatically create deployments, and you can set up however you'd like your deployments to go out. We set it up with in this environment with a test ring and then a full deployment ring. If you want more than that, that you go out to, you can absolutely do that as well. I'm showing it to you in Config Manager. Also works with Intune. So if you'd like to update if you are updating your applications or installing applications through Intune, you can do it there as well. The last thing I'm going to go ahead and show is Privilege Access Management. And what Privilege Access Management is going to do, it's essentially allowing users to elevate themselves based on policies that we've created to determine who's allowed to elevate or not. There are 3 ways that we can elevate. So when I run this installer, it's essentially, I'm not local admin on this device. So it's going to ask me for username and password. If I typed mine in, nothing good would happen. So what I can do here is there's actually 3 different ways that I can do this. The bottom 2, we consider kind of our self-service modes. So you can actually say, yeah, I'd like to use a local account that privilege manager is managing on the device and go ahead and install it that way. I could say I'd like to use a domain account, which means I need to put in my username and password in order for it to allow me to do that. And when I do that with those 2, what it's going to do is it looks at the Recast management server, and it'll say, hey, does Marty have permission to elevate himself? And does Marty have permission to elevate himself on this computer that he's on? And if both of those are yes, then it'll go ahead and either use that local account or domain account in order to elevate. The third one is not an actual self-service mode necessarily. And the reason we say that is because in order to use the activation code, you actually do need to reach out to someone to get an activation code created for you. Activation codes can be nice because, first of all, you have maybe another line of defense. If somebody wants to elevate themselves, somebody else has to approve that or agree to give them an activation code. The other thing that's nice about activation codes, and I'll show you what that looks like here. The other thing that's nice about activation codes is that they're only going to work on the device that they were created for. So I'm going to go ahead and generate an activation code for demo 09, and I can say how long I'd like it to be active for. For example, I could choose just a single usage. And then essentially when I'm creating, I tell it why. And maybe, maybe I say agreed by management or something like that, or you have a way that you can put exactly who approved it. You'll go ahead and generate, and what it's going to come back with is an activation code, and also how you can spell it out so that people don't lose, don't put down the wrong digit or the wrong character. So essentially what you're doing then is getting that activation code. The activation code will only work on that machine. It'll elevate that the local account that's on there that privilege manager is managing and allow you to do the action that you wanted to do. A couple of other things just to show real quick, and we're kind of getting close to time. But when you create an activation code, you're going to be able to see that it was created. You can also see if people use self-service. So you can actually see which account came in and asked for self-service, and you can tell if they used the local account that privilege manager is managing, or you can see if they used their domain account in order to do it, as well as the reason that they entered for what they're doing, and if it was a single use or a multiple use. The last thing that I also want to show is that one other thing that's super nice about Privilege Manager, and obviously you can do this other ways, but I really appreciate that you can also determine who's allowed to be in the local administrators group. So not only is it going to allow people to elevate as they need to, if somebody were to use that newfound power to go ahead and put themselves into the local admins group, I'm not saying I would do that, but I totally would do that. It's going to remove them if you have not set that to be a rule that's allowed. So it'll actually check, make sure that the people who are allowed to be in that group are allowed to be there. And if they're not, it will remove them as well. So that's just a real brief look at right-click tools, endpoint insights, a little bit of application manager, which is third-party patching, as well as privilege manager, which is our way that you can elevate users as they need to do things that they need to do on their computers.
Thank you, Marty.
Yeah.
All right. You just saw a few ways in which your organization can take steps to improve your security posture and become more compliant with cyber insurance policies as well. We've been working here at Recast Software, we've been working on an application management and vulnerability defense solution that aims to solve many of these most common issues that you just saw discussed today. We would like to invite those of you on this webinar to an advanced preview of this offering. I want to be clear, this is a new offer from Recast Software. Please respond to the poll on your screen here if you're interested in participating in this advanced preview. Give you guys a few more seconds, 15, 20 seconds to respond here. While we're wrapping up the responses here, for the Q&A, we have a few Q&A questions that have come in here. Let me start this off, Dr. Larry, and Marty, feel free to chime in if you have thoughts as well. First question, why do you think insurers are prioritizing adequate budget and in-house expertise over such critical security practices as patch management? So again, why do you think insurers are focusing so much on adequate budget instead of the details of specific security policies and practices in place?
I think in part it's who owns the decision to have insurance versus other tools. The person could be someone in IT, IT security, even like financial service functions, like treasury functions, might actually require some kind of insurance. So we think that's probably driving the trade anyway. But budget becomes objective. It's not the best measure, but it is an objective measure. And it's really easy to say, okay, we have the budget for something. And they actually have to do a cost-benefit analysis usually, ROI. And then good, they're ready to roll and buy the insurance, or they might reach a conclusion and it doesn't make sense. I think that's a long-winded response to your excellent question.
No, I think that's a very insightful response. Thank you. I also suspect insurers use budget as a proxy. It's a very clean, like you said, it does provide data by looking at the amount of budget allocated. It's a kind of clean, clear way to look at the priority that cybersecurity is taking within the organization. And I think your point that those that the cybersecurity insurance companies are talking to within the organization very often aren't the sysadmins on the team, for instance. The sysadmins are being handed the mandates of what they need to do to execute cybersecurity insurance policies, right. But they're not the ones at the beginning or the front end of the conversation with the insurers.
Agreed.
Yeah. Have one other question here. Do you think companies' security posture would benefit from more on-site risk assessment by insurers? So insurers coming on-site to the organization, would there be a benefit to getting more hands-on when they're assessing organizations?
Okay, so this is for me?
Yeah, if you have thoughts, yeah.
I'm a former auditor. I was a senior partner with PricewaterhouseCoopers and before that KPMG. And so audits become very important for establishing trust, but they can be very costly. And so there's a balance between cost and objective third-party auditing, which would be normally external, which would require people to actually do a site visit. That becomes a much more costly proposition. But audits can be very helpful in this regard. And some organizations have invested in audits, objective audits, to determine the viability of specific security tools, which would also include insurance. Mm-hmm. Good question.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Those are our two core questions here. So I'm going to move on and say thank you to everybody who attended today, first and foremost. Reminder, watch your inboxes. We'll be emailing 4 $100 gift cards to winners shortly, along with a copy of this recording and the cybersecurity insurance report that the Ponemon Institute produced in connection with Recast Software. The data is rich in this report, and we trust you'll find find that to be the case. Thank you for joining us, and have a great rest of your day. And again, thank you, Dr. Larry, for joining us, and Marty.
Thank you very much. Let's do this again.
Yeah, absolutely.